Have you ever noticed that money can feel like a trophy? It can feel like something that you just have to have. You have to be the winner. You have to be the one with the money, with the thing. You just have to have it. I know when I was growing up, my very first job, actually, Rowan, who's not up there today because she's at a staff meeting, but her and I had the same job. We worked for a neighbor, and we would do some basic yard work. Basically, maybe mow the lawn, but mostly just like flowers, mulching, raking leaves, very simple yard work. And we're doing this at a very young age and just getting a few dollars here or there, just basically enough for maybe some ice cream or a little treat, maybe some put away for the side. And I remember just feeling so good about it. Like, it felt like a trophy. It felt like I won. I worked and I got a few dollars so I could get something just for me. And I feel like in a lot of ways, money feels like that. It feels like something that you want to show off. You say, look what I have. But what if there's more to it? What if money isn't just a motivator for ourselves, but what if there's something better than it? What if it can be used more like a tool? Something that we use, something that crafts, something that is necessary, but has a purpose, a greater purpose. So before we dive back into Solomon and what he has to say about money as a tool, I want you to take just a couple minutes and discuss the question, do you think people use money to prove themselves or to feel better about themselves? Why or why not? Rather, if we use money to feel better about ourselves or not, many of us, I feel it's safe to say, like trophies. Like when we have more, like when life is easier, like when things are more accessible, like what money can provide. And in a lot of ways, there's nothing wrong with that, but is there something else? The book of Proverbs paints a lot of pictures, and one of them is on this idea of generosity. The last couple of weeks, we've been talking about this miracle offering, this idea of like giving what seems impossible to see God do the impossible. And in the book of Proverbs, Solomon, one of the wealthiest individuals to ever live, the second wisest person to ever live, next to Jesus himself, writes in Proverbs 11, his main book, verse 24 and 25. Proverbs 11, 24, 25. He says, give freely and become more wealthy. Be stingy and lose everything. The generous will prosper. Those who refresh others will find themselves refreshed. Give freely and become more wealthy. Be stingy and lose everything. The generous will prosper. Those who refresh others will themselves be refreshed. Let's break this down. Solomon's saying give freely. He's saying be open-handed. He's saying use your tool, but help build things all for yourself and for those that are around you. You see, it's really hard to share a trophy. I was joking earlier, this trophy is actually from an event that I was at. Picked it up from one of it's a room in the basement at the church. But there's only one of these trophies. And I was part of the overall outpost. I was at this event. I was part of the overall outpost. This is for Royal Rangers. But there was only one trophy. In fact, this trophy was in 2017, almost 10 years ago, and I had completely forgotten about it until I saw it. It wasn't given freely. It was given to the organization, and 8 years ago, I'm just now seeing it for one of the first times, even though I was part of receiving it. I'm not saying this was stingy, but saying, hey, it wasn't open-handed. You can't really share it if it's a trophy, but if it's a tool, you can share it. You can be generous. There's this perspective shift, and Jesus is not really saying, or no, Solomon, my mistake, is not really saying you give, you're going to become wealthy. Not wealthy in the sense that we think of wealth. Wealthy in the sense of your life will be better. You will experience the generosity of God. You see, we are designed to take. We're not designed to take, but we are bent towards taking because of what happened in the garden. When Adam and Eve saw, desired, and took, there became a bent for humanity to take things, to say, I want the trophy. But God, being so generous and so loving, sent Jesus down to earth as the tool. The one that was going to build a bridge for each and every one of you to experience his goodness and his love. What Solomon is saying is that if you are generous, you get to experience the generosity of God, the blessing of God. Your life begins to be better, not because you have more, but because you're experiencing more of the fullness of what God has designed for you. Man, if you're in a situation where life just feels hard, it feels like everything's coming at you and you just can't get on top, maybe it's really about money. He's saying be generous, and generosity comes your way. Jesus continues this same idea in the book of Mark when he's telling a story about some individuals who are giving. They're at the temple and they're giving, much like we give in church, much like the miracle offering we've been talking about. And in this story, it says in Mark 12:41-44, Jesus sat down near the collection box in the temple and watched as the crowds dropped in their money. Many rich people put in large amounts. Then a poor widow came and dropped only 2 small coins. Jesus called his disciples to him and said, I tell you the truth, this poor widow has given more than all the others who are making contributions. For they gave a teeny part of their surplus, but she, poor as she is, has given everything she had to live on. This woman is being open-handed. He's saying, I don't have much, but I'm willing to give it all. And in that, Jesus says this one has given more because it's about a heart shift. It's not about the amount, it's about your heart. What are you willing to give? How are you giving to time, space, opportunities? What are you willing to give? You see, money is a tool, not a trophy. When we view money through the lens of it being a tool, when we view resources as tools, we can start to build up other people. And we're building up other people, when we're building up God's kingdom, God will provide every need, every situation, everything we have. He'll provide it for us. And we'll be able to get to the next thing stronger and better than ever before. You trust God with what you have, and he'll help you get what you need. Say, God, this is what I have. This is the idea of the 2 loaves that we talked about last week. Money is a tool. Are we using it well? Go ahead and discuss the difference between a trophy and a tool. And then the significance of the woman's gift, and while even though it was small, it had an impact. A couple other questions. Discuss them with your groups, and we'll come back up and make it really practical. Okay, so how do we use it as a tool? There's 3 things I want you to consider. First, ask God to show you what you already have. In some context, you have more than you realize. So ask God to reveal you what you have. Say, God, what do I have? What resources do I have? It could be financial. What money do you have? But it could just be, the things that are yours, your possessions. This knowing what you have allows you to know how you can be generous. So determine. You may even write it out, journal it, put it in your phone, write it on a whiteboard, whatever you want to do. Talk to your parents even. What do I have? Talk to your leader. What do I have? Determine all the things that you have, and then look for ways to be generous. What don't you need? That should be really easy. If there's things that you have that you don't need, it should be really easy to give those away. But what things do you really like that you don't need? That's a little harder. And then what things do you need but that you could go without? Determining how can I be generous with money, with resources, with clothes, with time, with serving, all these opportunities. You're looking for ways to be generous, and then you're celebrating others that are generous too. That's one of my favorite things should just look around and just see people who are generous. Man, I have a friend who was just telling me about an organization he's a part of where somebody just gave like an anonymous check for a significant amount of money, a young adult ministry, where somebody just gave a significant amount of money anonymously, and they don't. He knows who it is, but no one else knows how it is. And I just, man, it's such a great celebration. I have friends that are missionaries, that they have people in their lives that are just giving almost all of the money they need to be supported. I know of churches that have done miracle offerings and things like this, and God's shown up in just radical ways. Celebrate those that are generous. If you know somebody's done a generous act, celebrate it often. You begin to create a culture. What you celebrate is what you have. So what do you have? How can you be generous with what you have? And how can you celebrate others that are doing the same? Go ahead and think about what you could do with a hypothetical $5 bill. What are 5 ways you can use it as a trophy? What are 5 ways you can use it as a tool? Notice the differences. Begin to talk about it. Begin to think critically about it. And begin to see how your own life could be different as you begin to live more generous. Excited for this conversation, and excited to see each and every one of you next week for Unite down at our Hagerstown campus. Big Thanksgiving feast, cool acoustic worship environment. Dress your best. Some cool opportunities. Definitely want to see you there next Thursday at our Hagerstown campus. Looking forward to it. Have a great night.